In July 2026, the United States did something that sounded almost impossible. Congress barred large institutional investors from buying single-family homes. The message was simple: homes are for people, not corporations. But the law does not force Wall Street to sell a single house. It does not cover every investor. And in several important cases, it still allows large companies to keep buying. So what exactly was banned? This is not a story about a fake law or an empty slogan. The prohibition is real, the penalties are enormous, and the threshold is surprisingly low. But the fine print reveals a more precise experiment. Stop corporate buyers from competing for certain existing homes, while preserving investment that might add or repair housing. Whether that distinction works will decide if this law changes neighborhoods or merely changes paperwork. The 21st Century Road to Housing Act became Public Law 119-1 on July 11, 2026. Near the end is a direct section title: Homes are for people, not corporations. It says no large institutional investor may directly or indirectly purchase or enter a contract to purchase a covered single-family home. The ban takes effect 180 days later, on January 7, 2027. Under this law, large does not mean Blackstone-sized. It means a for-profit entity involved in investing in, owning, renting, managing, or holding single-family homes that controls at least 350 of them. The definition also looks through layers of partnerships, managers, advisors, and controlling interests. Congress was trying to make it harder to divide one portfolio among shell companies and pretend that each owner is small. The rule applies to structures containing 1 or 2 residential units, excluding manufactured homes. A purchase is defined broadly. Cash deals, transfers, mergers, acquisitions, construction, foreclosures, and bulk purchases can all count. On paper, that sounds sweeping. A company at the threshold cannot simply rename an acquisition and walk around the rule. Then the exceptions begin. To understand the exceptions, return to the financial crisis. From 2007 to 2009, millions of borrowers defaulted and foreclosed homes accumulated. Cash-rich investors bought properties in bulk, converted them to rentals, and created industrial-scale, single-family landlord platforms. Their capital initially absorbed vacancies and stabilized damaged neighborhoods. The emergency trade eventually became a permanent business model. The popular story says Wall Street bought America. GAO data is more complicated. Across 6 metropolitan areas, institutional investors controlled under 1 to 3% of all single-family homes in 2024. That is far from national domination. Viewed alone, the figure can make a federal ban seem disproportionate. National averages, however, hide local power. Institutional investors controlled 22% of single-family rentals in Jacksonville, 13% in Phoenix, and 9% in Dallas. GAO found their holdings clustered geographically, often outside city centers. A buyer can look small nationally, yet shape bids, rents, maintenance, and bargaining power in one suburb. Both claims can be true. Institutional investors are too small to explain America's housing crisis, yet concentrated enough to matter locally. Research reviewed by GAO links them to higher prices and rents, but also to post-crisis stabilization. Limited data and inconsistent definitions make the exact effect difficult to isolate. Congress acted amid that uncertainty. Congress targeted a specific transaction: a large company buying an existing, usable home that a household might otherwise purchase. The ban focuses less on ownership than competition at the point of sale. It does not order companies to liquidate. Homes acquired before enactment may remain corporate-owned. The largest exception is new supply. A large investor may build and retain new single-family homes through a build-to-rent program, including entire rental communities. Congress deliberately preserved capital that creates housing instead of bidding against families for existing homes. New corporate ownership is allowed when it expands the housing stock. Compare two purchases. First, a fund outbids a first-time buyer for a move-in-ready starter home. Ownership changes, but supply does not. Second, it finances a rental community on undeveloped land. Families may rent, yet the housing stock grows. The law treats them differently because scarcity, not ownership alone, is the deeper problem. The renovate-to-rent exception covers homes that fail structural or core system parts of local building codes. The investor must spend at least 15% of the purchase price on improvements. This can direct capital toward homes buyers or lenders avoid. Its integrity will depend on documenting condition, cost, control, and compliance. One large institutional investor may also buy qualifying homes from another. Restructurings of homes already owned when the law was enacted are protected too. Existing rental portfolios therefore remain tradable. That may prevent forced disruption, but it also lets a neighborhood change corporate landlords without creating an opportunity for an individual buyer. For 2 years after the ban takes effect, a large institutional investor may make an accepted purchase from an investor outside the law. Smaller landlords could therefore sell homes into large portfolio during the transition. This may ease market adjustment, but it undermines any headline claiming corporate acquisitions simply stop on day one. Other exceptions protect certain foreclosure and debt-related acquisitions, qualified homeownership programs, renters, first look or right of first refusal programs, and qualifying housing for people 55 or older. Some preserve financial plumbing, others may turn renters into owners. The ban is real, but Congress built a filter, not a wall. For a prohibited purchase, Treasury, or the Attorney General at Treasury's request, may seek up to $1 million per violation or 3 times the purchase price, whichever is greater. That can change compliance behavior. Subject to future appropriations, penalties may support construction, rehabilitation, and first-time buyer assistance through HUD. The law also creates a federal reporting system. Large institutional investors must report how many single-family homes they control and the city and state of their holdings, except in cities where they own 10 or fewer. HUD must create a renter phone line and website for disputes and suspected violations. Better visibility may matter as much as the ban. Will prices fall nationwide? Probably not from this rule alone. Targeted firms own a small share of homes, and the ban releases none of their existing inventory. Rates, incomes, construction costs, zoning, land, insurance, and supply still drive affordability. In mid-2026, the homeowner vacancy rate was just 1.2%, showing how tight ownership supply remained. The effect may be clearer in concentrated Sun Belt markets, especially entry-level neighborhoods where cash bids are common. Removing one repeat buyer could reduce competition and give households more time or bargaining room. Yet the outcome depends on who replaces that bid: an owner-occupant, a small investor, or nobody at the asking price. This is the central limitation. Many investors remain below the 350 home threshold. Small landlords and medium-sized operators may still buy. If several smaller investors replace one large firm, ownership statistics change, while a first-time buyer's experience may not. The policy targets scale and concentration, not every non-occupant purchase. Success is not a politician saying Wall Street was banned. Measure it locally. Do owner-occupants win more sales? Do starter home prices or bidding pressures change against comparable markets? Does build-to-rent construction rise? Are renovation exceptions abused? Are renter complaints resolved faster? The law directs GAO and HUD to study these outcomes after implementation and again later. The purchase ban is temporary. Its requirements expire 15 years after taking effect, turning the policy into a long experiment. Regulators can observe results, while companies, cities, builders, and buyers adapt. The final outcome will depend not only on Congress's words, but on the incentives those words create. So did America ban Wall Street from buying homes? Yes, but only a defined group, for defined transactions, starting in January 2027. Existing portfolios stay protected. New construction and serious rehabilitation remain allowed. Smaller investors stay outside the ban. It is a scalpel aimed at corporate competition for existing homes, not a housing market reset. If the law works, families in concentrated neighborhoods may face one less powerful bidder. If it fails, corporate ownership may expand through permitted channels, while affordability barely moves. The fine print reveals the harder truth. Wall Street can intensify a housing shortage, but did not create it, and removing one buyer cannot replace building enough homes.